governments and administrations weaponizing the dollar, imposing sanctions on countries. Because of the fact that there is this international reserve currency, the United States have in recent years weaponized the dollar against Venezuela, against North Korea, against Iran, all countries that they purport that it's autocratic, it's not democratic, and so on and so forth. But the truth is that the world has really integrated financially in a much better way over the last decade or so. And so Trump, the threats that's coming from the US is such that the dollar, if it wants to have the respect the dollar once had, then it cannot be weaponized. Then it cannot be that you are threatened with sanctions and tariffs and so on and so forth. So for BRICS countries, China, Brazil, India, and so forth, Russia, they are looking at a mechanism that says when we trade with each other, can we use our own local currencies? Yes, prices are still set in terms of the dollar, but there is that ratio between the local currency and the dollar. And the more you trade in your local currency that is backed up by your own resources, the more your currency carries more weight. And so, yes, the process is named de-dollarization, but the truth of the matter is, Oliver, the dollar is going to be around for a very long time still. I think the USA needs to do some introspection as to whether if they want that currency to remain their foreign reserve currency globally, then they need to give it and afford it the necessary respect and not weaponize it. Otherwise, people will seek alternatives.
Let me reframe the political question I'm asking here. India is the world's biggest exporter of rice, yet the global commodity price for rice is set in the dollar. What will it take for the global commodity price of rice to be set in rupees, for instance, given that India is the biggest exporter of rice? What will it take to decentralize the price spotting of dollar instruments?
Further decline of the US empire. That's the simple answer. A further decline, because if we look in history, why the British pound lost that position and before it other currencies, it's because the empire came to an end. And so these are desperate measures from a declining superpower, a declining empire that Trump is wanting to hold on and still place first. Instead of saying that we are moving into a multilateral environment where all currencies are important, where all resources are important, and if you continue to threaten, if you continue to use the stick, then countries are going to move away from you. So in terms of why and how that should change for India, for example, as the USA decline in power and influence and more threats and sanctions, that is when the Indian government is going to decide to move away from the dollar, which they can. There will be consequences, of course. In our case, with our AGOA and other agreements, there will be consequences, but it's necessary consequences. And I think our own consumers, our own farmers, and our own industry must be aware that this is not the South African government creating this problem. It is the United States.
And a different dynamic to this conversation, equally as important, is that often diplomacy and geopolitics is a function of perception, and oftentimes it is a perception measured in terms of strength. The stronger we perceive of you, the more important we think of you, and the more we center you in our global existence and globalization interaction.